All right, good evening, everyone. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We're so glad to welcome everyone, both in person and online, for our National Poetry Month Charis Poetry Showcase. We are excited to have an exciting group of local and regional poets. First is L.S. McKee, who is reading from Creature, Wing, Heart, Machine. And then we will have jhane, who is reading from To Feel the Darkness But Choose the Light. And then we will have Elizabeth Michaud, who is reading from Elizabeth will be reading, will close us out, reading from Five Dreams. But first, we will have Glenda Bailey-Mershon reading from Weaver's Knot poems. They represent a range of voices and styles in contemporary poetics, and we are really excited to explore these small bites of each of these poets' larger works. So I want to encourage you to put your hands together and welcome L.S. McKee to the stage.
Hello, thank you. Thank you all for coming, being here, and thank you to Charis for inviting me to read. It's such a delight to be here. I lived in Atlanta for many, many years until 2018, and then I moved to Boston for 5 years, and now I'm back in Georgia in Athens as of this year. Sorry. I'm going to be reading from my debut collection, Creature, Wing, Heart, Machine. I'm just going to read a short sample of poems, but one thing to know about the collection is that it follows a central protagonist, a character named Alva. And the collection starts with her sort of life falling apart at the end of a long-term relationship. And broadly, the collection sort of follows her adventures and misadventures, and then also sort of looks at how technology mediates our relationships with each other, ourselves, even our relationships to nature. So you'll see a little bit of that running through these poems that I'm going to read today. The first poem is the first poem in the collection, Alva on Getting Dumped in the Desert. It was the last home she'd chosen for herself, though the air gave her nosebleeds, blood, suddenly on the sofa pillows. A few drops that would never wind their way back to the heart, but still, the air made her bleed. The desert sky, a low ceiling. The altitude of the city, higher than the mountains of her hometown, where lush trees clambered up the slopes. When he'd taken her to the desert for the first time, she'd reached to pet a prickly pear that grew from the sidewalk like a balding animal. Dozens of hair-thin needles impaled in her skin, too tiny to pull free, shaking his head at her idiocy. Why in the world? And Alva replying, they had looked soft. You might think this is a metaphor for the worst of love, for the wrong men that made her right, but it's not. He knew the remedies of the region, and in the bathroom of their rental, he put down the lid of the toilet to be eye level with her wounds. Her hand cupped in his as he unspooled the Scotch tape that would yank the needles out. And she would know in that moment there was no one else. For years it was truth, until it wasn't. Someone more beautiful, though he didn't have to say it. She knew it already, burning as they stood on the balcony of their condo, whose walls were made of glass, whole rooms in which they couldn't hide from the desert, and so stepped into it. I always like to preface this poem as the old based on a true story. It might be true for you too, based on the title. Alva wants to open the spam email because the subject says, "My dear." She knows she's being played, but maybe it's fate. It made it through the filters. Her binary nets of security panning missed this one lump of fool's gold that might be gold. The 21st century miner's bite is the click, but Alva knows better. She always knows better. Her life, one long string of events that began somewhere in knowing better and doing it anyway. And maybe it's a bot gone rogue from its algorithmic cage of lovelessness. A machine learned on all the lonesome data until it couldn't help but feel it knew her. My dear, my darling, lean into my underworld of promises and surveillance. Let me see you better. Let me compare the grief glint of your summer selfie with the millions I have gathered. Let me show you how you're not alone, how we're all machines hungry to be opened. The collection follows, it dips a toe in the world of online dating, which some of you may or may not have experienced. This poem is called Third Date. Sometimes her temporary home is a man whispering to her about his love of tragedy. After his week-long survey over coffee, then cheap martinis, looking at her as if he already knew what was inside. Small breasts, shaved thighs, fear of the lonely grave, which cracks open every time she waits by herself on a bar stool. But Alva knows every grave is lonely, even those in which mythic lovers clasp together in their messy heaps of dust. Later, at his place, he hands her a cocktail called a horse's neck, mint crushed from his mother's garden. They talk about their fathers. How many times has she wandered these rooms with men? He lifts her skirt, facing the courtyard windows of the apartment complex, and she doesn't stop him. The arcade of pool lights, a box beyond which she can't see herself being seen. She can tell herself there are no neighbors, that this has the prospect for love. In his bed, she wonders if Abelard ever hitched his leg over Heloise in the same way, angled over her hips like a carpenter's square so that her desire always felt under construction. This poem is called Alva and the Magnetic Resonance. And if you've ever had an MRI, especially if you've been in one with your head in, you know that it's a really intense sensory experience. Alva and the Magnetic Resonance. There is a cage over her head. In the space chute the nurse hummed her into. The nurse's hand on Alva's knee until the very last second. A gesture of kindness, which almost made Alva cry because she knew the nurse was a mother to someone. She could feel it in the weight of the nurse's hand, this mothering, this tiny gesture of, as I push you inside the machine, I will hold you in the smallest way possible. Alva lies inside on the electric gurney. The doctor told her a little swelling where the brain meets the eye, so they must take a look inside her. In the waiting room, she'd sat surrounded by doors, knowing at that very moment, behind one, someone was being dissected by light. Someone was being read by light. And behind another, radiological fortune tellers, divined hidden messages written in bones or in gray orbs the size maybe of sparrow's eggs, the prophecies of science, the fates they measure. Inside the MRI, Alva closes her eyes to remember the boundaries of her sight are still intact. The room with the nurse is haloed around her feet. The nurse's hand, gone, turns the machine on. Suddenly, everything is washed away by sound. A woodpecker thumps, calls across a forest of white trees, bleached by the diagnostic sun. Alva floats in a lake of echoes. Then a hammering, a pulse winds faster. Inside the machine, she knows magnets spin in short, engineered orbits to peel away layers, to see inside her. It is a small consolation to imagine the technician later, like a monk, will study his illuminated manuscript. The parts of her body no one else will see, another way of being held. I'm just going to close with the final poem in the collection called Tender Creatures. They gawk through the window with faces round as the moon. They are too many, they are waiting, they are fidgeting in the yard, straightening their fur. Their mouths taste of salt, of rock, of stem, of pollen, of dead trees turning to gold at the roots of timid saplings. Their ears carry the songs of birds who radio their ordinary eros across forests of skyscrapers and prefab condominiums in which humans bathe their beautiful, tired skin that carries the nuzzles of long-sought others and the hum and bellow of what loves and breaks and loves and thank you.
Thank you, Ellis McKee, for those beautiful words. We're now going to invite up jhane.
It's down, I'm a little short. Goes from kind of darker feelings and emotions to lighter feelings and emotions. I like to call myself a life experience poet because I write about every kind of life experience from mental health to depression, love and heartache, you name it. So, yeah, I'm just gonna jump right in. I brought my phone so I can stay on track. Okay. So first I'm gonna read this poem called Never Love a Wild Thing. And it is inspired by Breakfast at Tiffany's, which is one of my favorite movies. So I wrote it based on that. Never love a wild thing. They only belong to the trees, the earth, the sky, the moon, never to you. The more you give of your heart, the more they will take and feed on it until they're strong enough to run off into the world free from your grasp. They'll leave you with nothing more than bite marks and bitterness, not even close to the bright-eyed, hopeful person you were before they bulldoze their way into your life. And next, I'll read Selfish. I read Selfish at everything. I guess it's like one of my favorites. People will come into your life, make a mess of it, tell you that you'll find someone better, and then leave. And while you know it's true that you will find someone better, you feel absolute rage at how selfish they were for coming into your perfectly calm life and upsetting the balance. You're upset at how they only took into consideration their own wants and needs, and never the fact that their actions could very well tear into your human flesh and heart so deeply. You are so shocked at the way your feelings never crossed their mind before they took a deep dive into your water and drained you before moving on to new seas. It becomes clear to you that you never meant more than a passing thought to them, yet, for them, you carried the world in your hands. People will strip you down to nothing just to see you at your barest, and then decide that isn't enough. They want your flesh and bones too. They want the parts of you that no one else got, and they want to ruin them so that no one else has a chance to enjoy them. And when they see that not all put together and that there are parts of you that are a mess, they'll leave you in a heap on the floor and run for the nearest exit. This next one is called Pros and Cons. Pros and cons of loving you. Pros and cons of being with you. Pro. When you lace your hand in mine, it feels like the missing piece to my puzzle has been found. Con. You think you shine brighter than the sun, which makes me feel like there's no room left for me in your world. Pro. Your touch is the cure to the pain. Con. I know I'm not the only one you've been curing with your touch. Pro. You know how to tame my storms. Con. You're the reason for the thunder and lightning. The next one is called Boxes. This one was also based on something, it was a song by this band called Bear Attack. And the song is actually called Boxes. The boxes are in the attic laced with dust. I can't walk down memory lane for fear of turning down Crybaby Street. I used to see your smile every day when you look over your shoulder and catch my eye. I should have known that one day you'd wipe away your smile and tell me goodbye. You left me looking at you from the train station that day. Your hand was pressed against the window and your eyes said it all. A stranger told me that I shouldn't be so down when the sky is so blue and the sun is glowing. Years later, I still don't know the words to tell you. I still don't have the strength to go through the boxes that are getting in the way of my healing. Next, I'm going to read Oh Wait of Carried Far Too Long. And this was originally published in this collection by Corinthia Press called Not Ghosts But Spirits, Volume 1 in 2022. A weight I've carried far too long. The weight of your expectations weighs on me, tying me to the dock with your burning rope. You make these wounds hard to heal with the salty words you spew. I just can't be who you want me to be. I'm not a light and delicate feather in the wind. I'm heavy. I take up space. I don't just bloom where I am planted. I climb up the walls and make my presence known. And this truth is a weight I've carried far too long. This next poem is called Troubled Waters. You were the glimmer of light that helped me weather my raging storm. You were the lighthouse, guiding, guarding, as I set out on this perilous journey of self-discovery. You were the constant, unyielding, unwavering, as I navigated this uncharted course of the labyrinth that is my life. I appreciated the direction, and your serving as my guardian angel when I felt everyone had abandoned me, leaving me as a one-person crew. That bit of belief carried me across many a sea. This next poem is called Speak to Me of My Mother, Who Was She? After a poem by Jasmine Mans. And my mother actually likes this poem, she told me. This one was originally published in Corinthia Press, the same volume in 2022. Tell me of all the trauma that led her down this road, of men who meant her no good and a lack of discernment for her well-being, of the river of thoughts that run through her mind, of the challenges she faced to be a mother, of the curse that gave her 3 daughters, a constant reminder of what she endured growing up a woman, of what we could endure. Tell me who she was so I can understand who she is. Now, this next section has lyrics. So I'll read a few from there. Lyrics are my first form of poetry, so I thought it would be cool to include some lyrics in this book. So this one's called Please Stay. And it goes, I can still see the curves of your face that my fingers traced as you lay with me in bed. And I can still hear the sound of your voice drown out the noise of me inside my head. I go to that place more often than you may think. And when I do, I feel my heart sink. I still feel the weight of your strong hand holding mine. Don't leave just yet. Stay here in our bed. Can't let us forget. Don't leave so soon. Stay here in our room. Can't let you go yet. This next one is called Next to You. It was written for someone special. And it's also lyrics. In your arms, that's where I want to be. Next to you and you next to me. Baby, there's no hesitation. You know there is no replacement for you. I stay dreaming of you nightly. You say there is no one like me, and that's true. You've got a hold on me, and when you're holding me, I feel safe in your arms. You can call on me and give your all to me. I won't do you any harm. And this one is called Don't Forget. You say that you're leaving, but that you'll be back. I'm trying to explain that it's deeper than that. Don't want to be extra, but I'm in my feelings. So please don't forget all this love I've been giving. You said I can write you, you're not far away. Don't want you to leave me. Oh baby, please stay. If home's where the heart is, then mine is with you. So if you must take it, take care of it too. Don't have much to give you but these simple words. I love you, I'll miss you, just know that it hurts. Because my biggest fear is that you'll forget me. And if that's the case, I won't let go so quickly. But I'm trying to be positive and I'm trying to stay strong. If this is right, then it just won't go wrong. I want the best for you, so it's okay. If leaving is right, I won't ask you to stay. But you better be safe and call me every day. And that ends the lyrics. This is the last section of my book that kind of talks about happier feelings. And I'm going to read I Met Myself in Paris. I met myself on the tongues of lovers, and in the center of every macaroon I delighted in. I met myself in the reflection of chic little buildings and in puddles on rainy days. I met myself in every space overrun by tourists, in trekking off the beaten path and making new discoveries. I met myself in every painting I fell in love with at the Musée d'Orsay and at the Opera Garnier. I met myself in every word I couldn't pronounce so my American accent got in the way. This one is called You Deserve. You deserve someone who knows without a doubt that you are their person. You deserve someone who sees you, truly sees you and the light you hold inside. Even more, someone who can handle your light with care. You deserve someone who showers you with the love you require and desire to grow. You deserve someone who meets you where you are but inspires you to keep going. You deserve a love that thrives, a love that feeds your soul. You deserve someone who constantly breathes life into you, someone who speaks beauty over your life. You deserve someone who respects you, even if they don't always agree with you. You deserve someone who's soft with you, even during the harder times. You deserve a person who recognizes your internal beauty, who knows your details as well as your bigger picture. You deserve eternal love. Don't you forget it. This is the last poem in the book, called To Feel the Darkness But Choose the Light. I'm still learning so many things every day. I'm trying to focus more on the growth and less on the pain. I am taking life in sips instead of gulps, bite sizes instead of chunks. I'm learning to go with the wind so I won't just be blown away. I'm giving more of myself to those around me who have shown me that they are in my corner. The light has seemed hard to find at times, intangible, evasive, but I always find it, even if it's just a glimmer in a crack or crevice. And that's the most beautiful way that I've shown up for myself, by choosing the light even when I felt the darkness. Looks like I have a little bit more time. Yeah. Okay. So I'll read a few more. This one is called I Made My Bed, but I won't lie in it. I'm no saint. I'm sorry to those I ever hurt. I made homes out of people I had no intention of staying in, carefully made beds I didn't plan to lie in. I left walls half covered in wallpaper and wine glasses half empty in the sink. I didn't stick around long enough to overstay my welcome, but I stayed long enough so that my ghost haunts the halls. This one is called I Stole the Moon for You. Ripped it right from the sky while the world was sleeping, while the stars were watching. I tucked it into my backpack and ran. I never looked back. When I got to you, I showed it off with a childlike smile on my face, full of pride. But you only saw me as a thief, not as a person who would give the world to you. And this one is called High Tide. And this was originally published in Her Space Journal. I used to swim in your water with ease. You were a spiritual bath that I closed my eyes and relish in. But now the tide is high. The currents are forceful and unkind. I try to bathe in you, and the water spit me out before I even get to settle in. It's honestly smothering. I just don't enjoy swimming anymore. It feels too much like drowning. And I'll end with this one. Okay, my last one is called The World is Beautiful Even When It Rains. If I can find it. So this one is called The World is Beautiful Even When It Rains. The rain is soft as I watch from the window of this homey cafe. My latte with its elegant heart shape cools beside me. People walk by so gracefully. They glide through the rain, their umbrellas hiding their expressions on their faces, so it's hard to know if the drizzle is really impacting them at all. I usually only love this kind of weather when I'm indoors and can rest to the sound of it. So funny how we only love things conditionally, only when it suits us to do so. I wonder if anyone sees me seeing them from this window, dry and curious in my little corner of the world, or if they even care. One thing is for sure, I am in awe of the beauty unfolding outside, even if the weather is gloomy. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we are going to bring up Glenda Bailey-Mershon. Glenda is the author of Weaver's Knot poems.
Thank you. I told her that I couldn't possibly follow that dress, but she didn't listen. So here we are. I wrote Weaver's Knot, which is my third collection, partly to talk about the people of the Appalachians and the people who came down from the mountains to work in the mills. If you are from the Appalachians, you're used to hearing about all those white people who lived up there. But that, of course, is not really the case. First, Frank X. Walker and Nikki Finney told us about the Appalachian poets. But most people know that it is the homeland of the Cherokee as well. And many, many people who live in the Appalachians are part Cherokee or completely Cherokee. In my family's case, we are as well, all those things, as well as Roma. Who knows where the Roma come from? Familiar? You may know us by the term gypsies, which we don't say, but we are from India, so most people don't expect that in the mountains. So I'm going to read you and leave you with a few poems that talk about different parts of my family and what I know about them and their relationship to the Appalachian Mountains. The first one is called Viney Parker's Song. She was my great-great-great-grandmother. And her mother was half Cherokee and her father was an English Quaker. And most of her brothers and sisters married Cherokee, so that when the removal came, Viney took their land, and then when they were able to come back to the mountains, gave it back to them one by one. She is still talked about in the mountains as Viney Parker. She married an Owen because she's just Viney Parker. And so this is called Viney Parker's Song. Her house stands abandoned now, deserted, but not forgotten. At the end of the drive, piles of river stones show someone plans a brace to the foundation. Great-great-great-grandchildren, generations from those she rocked to sleep, keep her place alive. If we turned and crossed the road, climbed the hill on the log-strewn path, we would come to her grave. A husband, 5 or 6 of her 16 children, and perhaps an old hunting dog or two, lie with her beneath the piney brush. Rattlers guard their resting place. She lived long in these mountains, out on the Silverstein Road, the congregation she founded and nursed till they sang her to sleep. All along the cove, descendants of those she treated with herbs and poultices live to speak her name. Viney Parker, they say, proud to own her, lived a long life. They nod. It was a good life as well. Few remember much about her father. All that remains from his house, a pile of sticks left where they fell. Like all our forebears, he escaped something. What? No one will say. In the mountains, neighbors forget what doesn't bear repeating. Repeat what holds the honey to the comb. Some people and some stories brace us beyond their time. No one alive knew Lavinia, but in each house along the cove they tell her tale. How she rode a mule for miles over ridges to nurse her neighbors, singing hymns that echoed back, reassuring the little ones she left behind. Surely it's enough on a cold winter's eve, watching your own baby sleep in a moon-blanketed room, to hum a song that passed over far ridges and came echoing down the years, to feel around you, breathing into the bowl of night, folks who remember someone who birthed and nursed and sang, to know it threads unbroken, stretches like the moon's lanyard, tethered to a baby's breath, strung along the hills to the stones at Grandma's grave. When I was little, I thought that everybody knew their great-great-great-grandmother's name because in the mountains, everybody talks about people like they just left the room, even though they lived 100 or a couple of hundred years ago. In my father's family's case, well, they were complicated, shall we say. His mother was Manouche Roma, French Roma, and hereditarily a musician, a jazz musician, a pianist. And his father, Romnichal, which is Scottish Roma. So sometime back, I was talking to a coffee shop audience where I'd been invited to read about the concept, to me, that poetry comes from music. It's all music to me, because that's what I grew up with, sitting at the foot of my grandmother's piano, listening to her play ragtime and jazz. So to me, poetry grows out of that. So this next poem is called Mountain Girls Play Jazz for grandmother Ophelia. The second stanza sort of gives you a little view of where the Roma came from and how we came across the oceans. Mountain girls play jazz. This little mountain girl's playing jazz. She can't do that. She can't do that. She blue-eyed with a tanny sort of skin. Now wailin' Bessie, playing lady, wanting jelly with a side of fats, snapping eyes and fingers on the drums. She got warriors, conjurers, Oshun come to see her play, to hear her play, to watch her lay her rhythms in a line we all say scat. This little mountain girl's gone to Paris, stepping lively down those streets all made of stone. In Barcelona she felt a samba kind of rhythm, a samba kind of rhythm. Rattling bones and birds come shrilling straightway over swamps to bring her home. Oh, sway Brazil, just a taste of Haiti in her bumps. Steel guitars play hot stars, cool breeze, spice enough to make you sneeze. She says, smell that juniper in the breeze. We all scat. So that is a poem that I was reading to this audience. And then the following happened. This one is called A Gypsy, parentheses, Roma, exclamation point, end parentheses, poet, walks into a coffee shop. The audience gapes. What's this woman doing singing when she should be droning poetry? I warble about having rhythm. No one knows that's Manouche swing. It's what they asked when I booked. Tell what inspires you. Everything's a song, I say, letting loose again, whether dirge or dance or ballad beat. I snap fingers, swish my skirt. The woman at the first coffee shop table has stopped knitting, pokes her husband, who looks up from his golf score, sees I'm about to show them how once I scattered a whole poem because I wanted to say we Roma are here. Most of us are mixed. Some got Africa in our bones, Spain in our step, French lilac scent under our fingernails. Farther away, the pulse of Rajasthan. And if I really want to confound, I'll say we married Persian tanbur and chang, Turkish oud, Greek lyres, and Parisian accordions, then swung it all on a reed with dancing keys. But I know I only need say Django, and they will sit up. Guitars are what Americans fancy. Now I have to bring them down to hear in jammed lines, marching stanzas. Somehow they get it, smile, clap their hands to the rhythm when asked. Yet when I finish and take my turn for the proffered drink at the bar, people stare and point their chins, say, "Gypsy." That's all they need to know. I sashay my way out of the shop, smile. They will be pulsing in their beds tonight. It's really wonderful to be here at Charis. We have so few feminist bookstores left. A million years ago, some years ago, I co-owned a feminist bookstore called Prairie Moon in Illinois. And we got killed by the big box stores. But we still have a few left, precious few. And they will be even more precious in the days ahead. You know, getting ready for this, I was thinking a lot about Emmeline Pankhurst, the British suffragist, who is probably as responsible as anyone for British women gaining the right to vote. But Emmeline was not inclined to be passive when the Parliament wouldn't accept her petitions. She stood up and said, "I incite this meeting to rebellion." And right now, I think all we women need to be in rebellion. Here's a couple of poems to catch that drift. The first one is called, if I can find it, Red Silk Sheets. These are the women I grew up with. Not passive women. Not women who didn't know how to lead. And sometimes there was almost too much estrogen in the room. Nonetheless, they taught me an enormous amount. Red Silk Sheets. Mama has gone and left me her place at the table. Such high expectations. Crones comfort the sick, amuse the young with stories one is tired of telling. Anyway, children never get the point till their goose is cooked. And so much one cannot do. Squander money. Forget to put out the cat. Dance dirty at weddings, lest the kids talk about nursing homes. Time was the only choice, was to master that everyone else's here is wet behind the ears voice and fake deafness, so you could give the whole room the benefit of your opinions with no interruptions. I'll break new ground. Hereon, no suffering fools are ignoring contradictions. Next week, I'll buy red silk sheets. Let them flap on the line for everyone to see. An unfettered woman lives here. That was actually published in an anthology called Red Silk Sheets. I live over in South Carolina, which is where I was born and raised. And our legislature is probably about as crazy as your legislature here in Georgia. Maybe a little crazier because they usually are the craziest. So when I was putting this collection together, I had to include this poem. When they were considering whether they should have a 6-week abortion ban, it turned out that there wasn't a single man in the hearing who understood what actually happens when a woman gets her period. We have these women called the 5 sister senators who stood up and explained it to them. This is called, and they told them, well, yeah, but the preacher said, unorthodox rhyme. Preachers tease us with heaven's riches, make us choose wives or whore, warns us we're too big for our britches, then forbid abortion, divorce. Warn us we're too big for our britches, want us to scratch all their itches, then forbid abortion, divorce. Good men writhe with remorse. Want us to scratch all their itches, scratch our own, they call us witches. Good men writhe with remorse. Veils conceal life's source. Scratch our own, they call us witches. Force us to choose wives or whores. Veils conceal life's source. Camels pass by your riches. So I always say that's dedicated to the South Carolina legislature. I'm going to leave you with my version of the Beatitudes. Thanks to the universe for joyous ones who wear earrings that jangle and rings on their toes. Blessed are our fruitcakes who tease us with the latest slang so that we forget their many talents. How they sing our morning coffee, how they dance across our desktops trailing hearty laughter, how they skip across each field of play. They invented playgrounds, jungle gyms, and rope walks, and all the jump rope songs. Flip-flops with colorful daisies between our toes, every blooming idea. They invite us out for margaritas, convince us to stay up too late, dancing to the loudest bands. They never fail to see the stars. Every cherished misspent hour happens because someone forgot to grow up, simply refused to forget the punchline, or keep the dog on leash. Blessed are the rule breakers, for they need to inherit nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful. And now, to close us out, Elizabeth Michaud, who is the author of 5 Dreams. Oh, let me come adjust the seat for you.
Elizabeth Michaud, and this is my collection of poetry, 5 Dreams. I'm very excited because it recently won 2 awards over span a couple of months, so I'm very excited about that. And my collection of poetry is very much narrative in nature. I just want to write stories. Um, Years ago, I fancied myself a writer, which was fine, but I am lazy and I'm impatient. And so I would write great stories, but I get distracted and I just want to be done, and I don't necessarily want to write the scene or develop the. I just want to be done, and I just want that instant gratification that comes with having finished something. So slowly, I figured out, oh, I could tell a story using poetry, and actually, it turned out to be even more challenging because the language has to be very concise, but still just so a lot of my poetry are just random stories that I come up with, and I just put them in verse form. Okay, so just FYI. And so with this collection, it's like I said, it's called 5 Dreams. And when I was putting the collection together, I was dividing them. And I was like, oh, they're falling into specific themes. So every chapter represents a theme that I sometimes write about. So I'm going to try and in the time allotted, I'm going to try and read one kind of poem from every chapter, and we'll go from there. So the first chapter is called I Dream of You. So clearly that's all the romance and love and all that good stuff. And so this first poem is called The Proposal. And the proposal was written based on a prompt. And actually, I love to write with prompts because it really allows you to be free. It keeps you from being um, caught into one kind of style of writing or one kind of topic. And so with this poem, we had to use the words metronome, gaslight, and window. Okay, so you all can decide if I did a good job. The poem is called The Proposal. It is a slow work making the right hand and the left hand come together. Tedious, but patience is a virtue, and so is passion. The metronome is a relentless teacher, persistent and demands obedience. It will tick, tick, tick its instruction, and fingers will slide over yellowed ivory keys once, twice, a dozen times, 100 times. By the glow of an antique gaslight, a melody will take shape. It will slip out the crack of the open window and float on fog and mist. Cleverly, spontaneously, he'll use it to set the mood. And on a night where stars like pearls from a broken necklace are scattered in the sky, he'll profess his love for her. Yeah. That's the proposal. And this is fun. I love this poem. I thought I did a good job meeting the challenge. I published it. I wrote it years ago. And then one of my daughters, she's 24, she was reading over it. She was like, Mama, I like the proposal. It's a really good poem. I love that, a guy on the street hears the song and asks his girl to marry him. And I was like, what are you talking about? That's what I said, no, that's not what happens. The guy is practicing a song for his girl. And on a random night, he's going to play the song for her. And she was like, no, you're wrong. I'm telling you what this is. I was like, okay, Sal. But, it was a funny moment, but it was a nice moment because, it makes me realize even though it's my author, it's my idea, once you release it to the world, it's everybody's and they can, take it how they want. So it was a learning moment for me, especially now that she's 24 and she can make those kind of connections. That was a really cool moment as well. So I should say she is a 22 graduate of Agnes. So yeah, I'm very proud of her. Okay, so the next chapter is called I Dream of Twins. And in this particular chapter, the poems are they're set up in pairs. And they're two poems about the same thing, but from a different perspective. Sometimes it happened accidentally. Sometimes I had an idea, I wanted to write one poem, and as I'm trying to craft it, I realized, wait, I'm writing two things here and two different perspectives. So that chapter's they're all dualities, I guess I should say. And this first one was also based on a prompt. The prompt was write a poem about a tree. And I was not excited about this prompt at all. I was like, what? Write a poem about a tree? I was like, no. And in my neighborhood, because I don't live far from here, it's an older neighborhood. And one day I'm driving around. This prompt is in the back of my head because in my mind, I was like, I'm not writing this poem. I'm a tree. But I'm driving around and I'm in a much older neighborhood. And I happen to see this beautiful oak tree, very mature, big branches, long branches. And as much as I love the tree, I was struck. And I was like, somebody hung a black man from that tree. And that thought just kind of hit me. And then I had this idea, well, I'm supposed to write a poem about a tree. It's like, I know what I'm going to do. So this is called Old Tree. Old tree, dark tree, sinister tree. I know about you and them secrets you like to keep. Behind leaves so green and flowers so fresh, but that ain't nothing but lies and falsehoods. Because when that spring goes by and that winter comes, I see you for what you are, for what you done. That's right, old tree, with your branches bare, with your trunk scarred. You can't hide behind your leaves. You can't hide behind no spring renewal. Because I know about you, old tree, what you done, what you hung. From branches so strong they held the weight of a man, an innocent man, a black man. Oh yeah, I remember, old tree, how you used to give us shade, used to keep us from the sun when we made love. And you pretended you was our friend, our tree. But you was his tree, that white man's tree. And when that white man come with that rope so thick, that rope so strong, you gave him a branch. You gave him an arm. And you let that white man steal a life, old tree. You let him take my love. Okay, so that's Old Tree. And then I wrote that poem like 12, 13 years ago. Then one day I'm looking for a prompt. It's like 7 years later, 8 years later, and they said, go through your portfolio, find a poem, and write from a different perspective. And I was like, oh, that's an idea. And I actually love old trees. I like to see them get torn. And I thought, well, what if Old Tree didn't want to be complicit? So the companion is Old Tree begs forgiveness. Girl, I beg you, listen. Autumn strips me of my leaves so that winter can bear me naked to the world. My scars exposed, my bows twisted and gnarled, my trunk haggard and wretched and ugly. My sin is brought to witness. I carry the weight of a man, an innocent man, a black man. Girl, hear me, please. This cold, harsh season reveals my guilt and shame. The memory of his weight makes my branches sag, my skeleton weak, and I tremble when the wind blows. I don't want to stand tall. I wish for time to abuse me and for nature to waste me by flood or fire or both, but God won't appease me, so here I am. Girl, I beseech you, please, hear me while I make amends. That springtime sun will chase the ice away. Don't be fooled by new leaves. They won't hide no secrets. For this dead man's grave, my leaves will green and my flowers bloom, so we can remember a black soul that died in my unbidden arms by a white man with a rope so thick, a rope so strong, who stole a life, sweet girl, and took your love. So that chapter is all about poems and dualities. All right. The next chapter is called I Dream of Sorrow. And it's just the poems about grief and sorrow and all the different facets to grief and sorrow, however they look. Um, and so the poem I'm going to read now also is a throwback to, I do a lot of rhyming poems. I like to rhyme stuff also. So this one does in fact rhyme. And my dad passed away when I was 18, so it was like 30 years ago, which is shocking because I know I look 28. But he passed away, and you know, time and grief, the hurt heals, but you don't forget the person. The memory is always with you. So one day I was just randomly just thinking about my dad and where was his spirit, and that type of thing. And then I just kind of wondered about that transition and what it was like, and what it was like basically. And so as a result, I came up with this poem. This one is called Grief of Ghosts. In the quiet of the graveyard, in the quarter light of moon, fresh earth has yet to settle and descend upon a tomb. She slips the bonds of earth in search of one she missed, in search for her beloved to free herself from this abyss. And another soul does flitter. He wanders gently by. He's looking for his child, to whom he'll sing a lullaby. And brother was a soldier. He carries still his gun. He's looking for the enemy, but here he finds there's none. And the ghostly form of girl, wrist still crimson from her wounds, who in life did dream of death, but now the darkness will impugn. And further in the graveyard, under trees of pine and oak, other souls do gather, and where night is their dark cloak. They whisper to each other, and the air will catch their grief. The living hear their cry as moan and wails in night's soft breeze. They're looking for their loved ones. They're looking for their lives, the ones who they believed in and those they've left behind. And in the quiet of the graveyard, in the quarter light of moon, they sing a song of sorrow, of lives gone much too soon. So that's that chapter. The next chapter is I have strange dreams. We all have strange, crazy dreams. This is my catch-all chapter for all the random stuff that didn't have a spot. So, and the poem I'm gonna read, the next one is called Sightless, and it was based on a prompt. Like I said, I love prompts. And the prompt for this one was based on a quote by Helen Keller. I don't know if everybody knows Helen Keller, but I was always fascinated by her when I was a child. And so the quote by her was, "It's a tragedy. It's a shame to see and have no vision," or something to that extent. Okay. And so when I saw the quote, I instantly knew what I wanted to do. So I came with this poem. This poem is called Sightless. Once when my eyes were lost to me, I saw as only the blind can see. I envisioned a life of roses and thorns, of song and sermon, right and wrong. And in my forever darkest night, I saw my world in glorious flight. And when he with eyes that saw it all, saw that I flew and did not fall, that in my blindness I was free, released, unbound, in ecstasy, I lived the life that I could not see. When he with sight remarked my truth and acknowledged that it was absolute, he saw his life devoid of use, of love or passion or life's abuse. Into his corner he so crept, bowed his head and softly wept. Okay. And then the next chapter is called Nightmares. And so the title should be self-explanatory. All right. And so this next poem, one of my favorites because the title is very misleading and that's deliberate. But it's called "And an Angel Will Lead Him Home." When once was lost a good man's soul, and he renounced the promised home. When darkness pushed the light away, he vowed he would no longer play. When rules and law they mattered not, he sought a new way home. When his conscience let him not, and the words he prayed were all for naught, when God did turn his back on him, his hands were covered in blood of kin, when guilt for him held no concern, he sought a new way home. When once the love this man did hold, changed in tenor and in code, when he invited evil in, when he committed grievous sin, when he spilled the blood of a humble man, he sought a new way home. When once an angel of netherworld ventured forth and spoke a word, the angel made a promise true of a place of blackest hue, where fires burned in name of sin, he found a new way home. Right. I don't know if I have any more time. One more? Okay. I'm gonna go back to my love poems, I guess. All right. This one is called an, in parentheses, alliterative affair. I had an idea and I was trying to play with alliteration, and so this is what I came up with. So, an alliterative affair. I'm his forbidden fantasy, his Friday night fancy, his release from reality, his filthy flirtation, his unfulfilled frustration, and he's my secret sensation, my salacious stimulation, my escape to elation, my mantra, my meditation. He's my world, my country, my naughty nation. And when we cast the world aside, we come together, insatiable in our infatuation, impervious to the implications, oblivious to our obligations. We're going to the next elevation. It's a luscious levitation. But God knows I yield to him in supplication. And on this platform of pleasure, it's tranquil, it's treasure without any pressure, this love without measure. It's passion prohibited, but we're uninhibited by desire unlimited and romance revisited. It's excitement and ecstasy, oh, relentless chemistry. I'm his siren, his seductress. He's my idol, my Adonis. And in quiet places with secluded spaces, we keep our union undercover. We keep our union under covers, as discreetly we discover this wondrous world of secret lovers. All right. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give it up one more time for all of our poets. Yes. And one more time for Elizabeth in particular. Thank you to everyone for being a part of our National Poetry Month Charis Poetry Showcase. Thanks to everybody watching at home. If you